Hey guys, Julian here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make melodic progressive house like Yotto. We're going to be talking about his releases on his label, more sort of that style, the stuff he's been doing more recently. And yeah, as usual, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything like that from this video right at the top of the description on my Bandcamp. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, let's dive in. So the first sound we have here is the lead, which sounds like this. So this is a really simple sort of progressive lead. What's happening here is we're in the key of G. That is the key of this track. And then it's just this simple like G minor sort of thing where basically you can see we're bouncing up here. So we have a low G, and then we have A sharp, which is just a minor third, and then A, which is the ninth, and then back then the G up there. It's really simple. Like if you look at this, that's all the melody is doing. And then we're just bouncing up to the high notes. And then just like little. So yeah, this is the thing with this style. You're really going to want to just try to write simple melodies like this. Like, you could write a whole long arpeggio with like 9 notes in it and do all this crazy stuff, but it's usually just going to sound better, honestly, if you just have something simple like this. And the reason is actually really more to do with your brain than it is to do with the music. The honest truth is just that, you know, in the case of having more things hitting you at once, it's just more information that's coming at the brain. And so it's harder for your brain and other people's brains, especially people on the dance floor, to take in so much information. If you're setting 9 notes, like I said, in your scale or whatever at a time, they're not going to be able to really remember any of those 9 notes. They're just going to hear them, and they might be sort of blown away when they're hearing it, but it's not really going to be that exciting or that memorable. But if you have something really simple, like I said, it's literally just less information for your brain to take in. So it's going to be catchier. And a lot of times, this is really the difference between a catchy melody and a non-catchy melody. It's not really even like the quote-unquote like quality of the writing or how much stuff is happening, but really just one is just easier for people to remember because it's literally less notes in your face. So that's the way I try to think about it. And yeah, and then for the sound with this one, this is made using wavetables. So you can see it's just this one square wave going into a low pass filter, which you can see I have an envelope on that low pass there. Yeah, it's right in there. And then I have this unison here on the noise setting that creates like this really cool sort of unison where it's a little bit more like textured. And then I just have a bit of chorus, spreading the sound out, you know, making it sound really big, as well as this echo here. You can see this is on dotted eighth notes, and I have it on the ping pong setting, you know. I like to have this be kind of wide like this. So you're kind of getting it back and forth. And then I have the reverb up a little as well. Then we just have some drum busts to fatten this up. You know, make it really hit. That transient shaper really helps to make it, like, have a lot of punch so it'll stand out in the mix. So you really get that, and not just like a little like background lead, but something that's really going to punch through. And then finally, I just have a high pass filter. And yeah, then we have the bass. So this is made using 3 layers. They're all playing the same bass line. We have this first pluck, the second pluck, which you can hear is more like down the center. So the first one is more like kind of the wide spread out one with delay. Then we have just like the punchy one, and then we have the sub. And the sub is actually playing the same, it is playing the same bass line, even though the MIDI looks a little bit different. The only difference is that the plucks bounce up. Like if you look at this here, when we go up to this G up here, it goes up an octave. And then here on the sub, I just have it staying in the same octave, but it's the same note because, yeah, you know, with the sub, you usually just want like one long, fat, held out note rather than like bouncing all around the different octaves. It's going to kind of make the low end sound weird if you do that with your sub. But yeah, and then for the notes on this bass line, you can see it's actually just playing G. Like I said, that's the key. We're in G minor, and it's just this super like progressive, groovy type of groove. And yeah, that's really all you need, you know. You don't really need to have like a super crazy bass line with the style. It goes back to what I was saying before, you know, a lot of times it's better to just have less stuff happening. And then have like some interesting synthesis happening with it. So yeah, for the sound with this one, you can see for this first pluck, it's made with wavetable. So we have a saw wave and a square wave, and the square wave has a little bit of FM. It looks like, as you can see, I have, yeah, the envelope on there. There's also an envelope on the filter cutoff, as you can see and here, and then we just have a bit of unison. So like I said, this is creating that like wider, sort of big, plucky, chorusy stab. And then on this one, we just have a bit of echo. That's on the ping pong setting, so you're getting that like bouncing back and forth. Got some drum bus, and then a high pass filter. And yeah, and then for the second pluck, you can see this one is made using analog. So what's happening with this one is we have two square waves. You can see they're an octave apart. I'm pretty sure, yeah, the pulse width on the second one's turned up a lot. So it actually might sound even a little bit more like a saw wave. But it's just two square waves. And then those are going into a low pass filter with an envelope on it to make it kind of plucky. The amp envelope is also set like that. And yeah, then we just have a bit of chorus to make this one a bit bigger, a bit of drum bus, which is also accomplishing the same goal. And then a high pass filter. You can see this one isn't as high passed as the first one because this one needed to have a little bit more body to it. You know, this is like what separates these, so you can hear the space between them. And then finally, I just have this utility here doing this bass mono. And this is actually, even though this pluck isn't like that much in like the subby bass frequencies, it is still a bass. And since we have this chorus on here, I just wanted to make sure that any like low end in there would be mono. So that's what that utility is doing. And yeah, and then finally we just have the sub. So this one's really simple. It's a saw wave and a square wave. You can hear this just creates this super fat harmonically rich waveform. This is pretty much the best way to make like a really, really harmonically rich waveform. The idea with the sub is that we're creating something that's going to be huge. And obviously, you know, that takes up so much space. But then you're low passing it, so you still get that hugeness in the low end. But now, it's just the low end, but it's still this like big fat sound. So that's the idea there, rather than just using like, you know, a sine wave or something like that. It's a much better way to get a really fat and full and like warmer sounding sub as well. And then we just have the amp envelope like that. And then I just have some drum bus on that one. And yeah, and then I have all the basses in a little group together. Just with a bit of EQ just to cut out a little bit of space for the kick. And then speaking of which, after that we have the kick. So this is your standard, just like really deep, fat, melodic house, a techno kick like this. I got this one in here, and then it's just going through some drum bus. You can see I added this little boom, boom, boom. That's subtle, it's just the same kick, but just an octave down. It just gives you something a little bit like, kind of moving in the groove. When you get that boom, 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 boom. So that's the idea behind that. And then on the group of all that low end together, so typically with this style, it's really important to get, like when you have this kind of a bass line, and then you have a kick, to get them in the same group together and process them together. And the reason is, these two sounds are very different dynamically. And just like sonically in general, but these two sounds make up all of your low end and really like the main groove of the track, as you can hear. So, you can't have them just be like off in their own little worlds. You need to have them be really tight and together. And the best way to do that is really simple, actually. You just put everything in a group, put a bit of saturation on it, and then I'll show you. So here's without this. And then with it, so you can hear like it's really pulling these together and it's bringing them closer together dynamically as well as sonically. You know, the overall low end is just gonna feel like a lot cleaner and a lot stronger this way. And yeah, that is it for the low end. Then we have these little noise stabs which sound like this. So what's happening here is this is actually playing off of the bass line. If you listen to it with the bass line, you can see it's actually just playing some of the same notes as the bass line, and then I've just cut out some of the other notes from the bass line. So the idea with this one is exactly that. It's just to kind of add that extra thing to the bass line. It's honestly kind of meant to sound like it's just part of the bass, but this wasn't really going to fit in with these basses, so I just did it on its own layer. But you can hear when you play them together, it sounds all like one thing. And this is one of those really important background elements, like just having that little like that like the white noise kind of opening up like that is really bringing a lot of life to the bass, because you're hearing this constant steady bass note and then you're getting these little stabs of white noise hitting at the same time, but like just kind of adding accents. And this is a really good way to add interest when you just have like a simple one note bass line like this. You know, a lot of times people ask, well, how do you make a track interesting if it's just going to be one note? These are the little secrets that people use to make their tracks sound exciting and to make you like really get into it, even if it is just like a really simple track. And the key to this one is it's really simple. You know, you can see it's just some white noise here, and it's going into this low pass filter. The low pass is just being automated, so that's how we're getting that like movement. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I just have a bit of drum bus, a bit of a high pass filter, and then again, it just kind of plays over the bass like in the overall mix. And yeah, it adds a lot to the track. Then we have the hi-hats. So these are pretty standard sort of melodic house hi-hats, and I guess you could say cymbals since we have this ride as well. We just have like this main open hi-hat. You know, more of kind of like a mid-rangey sound. You don't usually want like a super bright like tss, or like a 909 hi-hat like or something like that, but something a little bit deeper and mid-rangey like this. Because then we have the ride in the high end, so you can really hear the space between them. Versus if this hi-hat was just like, you know, super like tss, it wouldn't work so well. And then we have the ride, so you can see this is really simple. It's just going tss, like, I'll show you what it's doing. It's got this little pattern where you can see I've got the velocities building and kind of staggered to make it really feel alive. You know, this is another one of those things with this style is like, you don't want to just take that ride and just go tss, 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 but you want to do something more of like a pattern like this so that it adds a lot of groove. And another thing with this one is the auto pan. I just have this panning around so you're kind of getting it moving around from left to right. And it helps actually clear up a lot of space in the mix because now you have like the hi-hats and I'll say like the lead and the basses down the center, and those can all coexist very well. But then all of a sudden, having this ride right in the center with everything else just didn't work as well. But now that it's panning, you have more room in the middle of the mix for all the main elements. And then finally, I just had this little closed hi-hat, which is just playing like this. Just like. And then on the group of hi-hats, we just have a bit of drum bus and a high-pass filter, and then a little high-end boost. So the drum bus, here's without it. And then with it, you can hear it just glues the hi-hats and cymbals together, you know, really makes them fit nicely into the track and makes them sound really full. Then the high-pass filter and the EQ are kind of doing like one goal and the same. It's just cutting out the lows and then giving it a little bit of a high-end boost to bring out that like, you know, the really bright frequencies. And yeah, that's it for the hi-hats. And then the last thing we have down here is the percussion. So you can hear these are pretty simple. It's basically just this rim shot and then this little roll. And then a clap. So just kind of like a few different layers of percussion. You know, we have like one little background percussion, which is constantly happening with the rim shot. Then the roll gives us something that isn't constantly happening, but it's happening in a place that we can always count on it. Like we know we're always going to hear. And this is really how you build a group, is by having these different layers of percussion, and then on top of that, just having like the clap that's just going straight on the 2 and 4. And then on the group of those, I have a bit of drum bus and EQ8, so pretty similar to the hi-hats. I like to put the hi-hats and the percussion in a different group, especially with this style a lot of times, because you can kind of process them differently. Like if you look at these, you see the drum bus is actually pretty similar, but then what's happening here that makes it better is that it's not everything like the hi-hats and the percussion going through one drum bus and then trying to push through all that saturation. Instead, you have a few things going through each one that can really shine. And yeah, so that is pretty much it for this one, guys. That's all I got to show you today. As always, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get this full project file, samples, MIDI, presets right in the top of the description on my Bandcamp. It's just $5. And if you guys enjoyed this video and my other videos, consider supporting me. It's a great way to help out. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody. And I will see you tomorrow with another video.